I just saw something today that I've been working in Lightspeed 8 years. I've never known it was there. I was like, this is awesome, but I wonder how many dealers use it. In system preferences, you can enable a part adjustment reason, right? So if you go to change the quantity on hand from 5 to 4, you have to say why you're doing it. Do you have any dealers like Mark? Have you had anybody use it? Brian, I guess experience there. So it's weird for me. I've probably seen 1,000 different stores, and I've never seen that as an option until today, where it popped up. But
it was only turned on about 5 months ago. So
it's newer. Okay.
Yeah, it is, but you can define what the reasons are.
Yeah, it's newer.
Yeah, I saw that in the part lists. Yeah, for the adjustment reasons. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's pretty new.
I think it's a good idea if you've got folks that are willy-nilly changing quantities and you'd like a little bit of a handle on why, right? So and it kind of goes back to, as you're saying, Mr. Lucas, is you don't know what you don't know. So first of all, make sure you're reading those release notes. That's a good place to find out some of that information, and then get down and dirty and push some buttons inside of Lightspeed. But yeah, one of the demo databases that we use to demonstrate the product has it. And I'll admit sometimes it's frustrating because I'll go to adjust something and then I have to put a reason in. So once you turn it on, just be aware that will be another layer of parts adjustments, but it's really there to protect the dealer.
But and I was thinking as the data junkie, right? Like we're the accounting controller, and like give me all the data, add a couple clicks. What's a couple clicks?
Sure.
And then you think about the parts person of like, I've got to click 3 more times to change. If I got to go change 200 parts, I got to. That's an extra couple thousand clicks. Are you kidding me? Yes, that's what we're paying you for, right? Like,
but also it makes you stop to think too. Because I was a parts guy for a lot of years, and I did lots of stupid things as a parts guy, not understanding that every stupid thing I did impacted the general ledger or had some impact on accounting. Just wasn't even in my wheelhouse. So, yeah, it kind of makes guys like me think, right?
Oh, my new service manager last year went in and put in the labor rates for the technicians, he put a cost of labor, and we don't use work in process. So I'm still cleaning up that mess.
Yeah. Yep. I'm going to throw another one out to you guys that I've had varying opinions on. I personally have an opinion. I want to hear what yours is. Miscellaneous part with cost. Is that a yes or a no, or is there circumstances where yes?
I'm a no.
Yeah, more often than not, it's a no. There's a couple reasons why you could. What I would love to see happen to solve the problem, I think, in most cases, people are using miscellaneous parts with the cost because you can sell F&I products that way and have it create your invoice for you in AP or in other places that, they're using that as a tool to sell it.
Makes sense.
I would love, and I know that there's a CR for this or a development request, but being able to sell an F&I product outside of a deal, and then I think a lot of that miscellaneous stuff will go away because for me, it's never really parts related, even though the features for parts.
Right. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. I can remember selling service contracts as a miscellaneous part over the counter.
Yeah.
Salesperson walks up, sell this guy's service contract. Oh, what?
So while you bring that up, it's kind of, I won't say directly related to that, but in parts under ordering under the buying guide, you can select the suppliers and the categories, and the categories shows every category in the system, even ones that aren't designated to the parts department. So makes no sense why they show up in there. That could just be parts related fields.
Oh, good point. Good observation. Yeah.
And just so everybody knows, we haven't officially started yet, but we like to just get in here and open up. Saw somebody like, oh, is this being recorded? Yes, it is, and we'll talk about that again. But I'd like to kind of open it up a little bit here. Here's another random question I was thinking about and talking with another staff here at TAG about it. Is it in the dealership world? Does service do video appointments like the medical world? Like to diagnose something and say, this is how I think it'll take you this much. Bring it in. Instead of if they're in a rural space or something and it's hard to get there, they can at least have an idea of what's going to happen when they get there. Does that happen?
Oh, well, I can speak a little bit to that. What do you think, Mark?
Well, say what you're going to say, because I got a hardcore thought on that one.
Okay, well, But we'll see. So as you know, maybe you guys both know, we rolled out service video just shy of 2 years ago. I want to say 15 months ago, but I'm probably give or take a month. And it was one of those things, just as anything new, it was slow to get adopted by dealers. And the way it works is your Lightspeed mobile application has a video record function. It is behind a license toggle. So if it's something you're thinking about, you want to make sure you have the licensing for it. But it allows for an advisor, a manager, a technician to record a short video clip up to 5 minutes long. That's sometimes a question, how long, of the vehicle that they're servicing. And it could be an inspection video. I know you brought your bike in for an oil change. We found a bunch of metal chunks in the oil. When we changed the oil, we pulled apart the clutch. It's blown up. And we think the top end's blown up. So maybe you record other elements of that repair, send that video over to the customer. And whenever I'm demonstrating that feature, I talk about a picture's worth 1,000 words. Sometimes a picture's worth $1,000 when it comes to service and repair. But what's a video worth? Maybe it's $1 million. I mean, that's of course an exaggeration, but we use it for upsell opportunities. It's a trust building experience. It's a relationship building experience. But to your question, Bryan, would it be used to diagnose and share an estimate and then maybe get buy-in and approval? That's a perfect use case. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and I guess I'm thinking even before so I know a ton of our service departments are super low on capacity. They have a ton of turnover, so maybe they don't have time to do this right now. But what would it look like if if I live 2 hours away from the dealership that I want to take my unit to just be able to call them up and say, hey, look at this unit. Give me, this is what I got going on. This is what the sound is. What could I expect when I get there? When could I schedule it out? Does that make sense? So more of the preemptive. And maybe the medical industry charges like $50, $100 for that call, right? Like,
okay.
But I didn't know, did anybody do that during COVID, or is that even a thing? Or,
and that's the consumer recording the video, sending it to the dealer and says, give me a price, right?
Or a Zoom call with the dealer, right? To just, hey, can you just, and it's probably super hard to diagnose something like that, right? Like just like the medical profession, but is there something there where it would maybe encourage more traffic to service? But Mark, you said you had an immediate feeling there.
Yeah, well, I think
your thought.
Well, my counter to that is that in a lot of cases we don't really want the service writers to diagnose at the service counter because then a lot of times they are not taking what the customer is saying and putting it on paper. They're kind of rewording things, and so you get a technician who's going after the wrong thing. I think that to really do that, you would almost need to put a technician on a phone, and then you're kind of giving away something that dealers don't really have enough of already as it is.
Gotcha.
Good point.
We used to go around and say what we really needed was like an 800 number, or like a Miss Cleo that somebody could call up, and for $2.99 a minute they could talk to a mechanic, because to put a mechanic on the phone, that is lost opportunity for the store.
Right.
Yeah. Something to consider. Right. I think to another view of this, Bryan and Mark, is trades. If you've got a trade that you want to check and see what the value is, you're deciding, can I afford that new motorcycle? If I bring in the trade, maybe it makes sense financially. Can I do a video of my machine and have a trade appraisal? Maybe that's a little more reasonable than a service diagnosis, but potentially a couple different use cases for video.
Yeah, just something interesting we started talking about. We could, back to your point, Mark, like it is the doctor that you get on those calls with, and then so I don't know, maybe you did have a virtual technician, and who knows what that would look like, but you don't want to take away from what's happening at the dealership already, right? So but wonder what that would look like, because I know for me, I guess I never go to the doctor anymore. It's all virtual meetings, but so maybe that's the problem that it could create on the other side. But
I think now the customer already has it, though. It's called YouTube, and
that's true.
How many times does your doctor tell you if you're sick, don't go to Google to figure out what's wrong with you?
Yeah,
because the answer is always cancer. You've always got cancer.
Right. You're always dying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
you're always dying, and your health insurance will never cover it.
That's right.
Maybe we'll give it a couple more minutes. We have still quite a few people kind of pinging in here. We'll give them a couple more minutes. But
if anybody who's joined has got a question, just drop it in the comments. So we're kind of in that random rambling phase right now. So KP
Looks
said our service was adding a labor line for a tech when billing out a delivery. They were paying the tech for not even doing the
Oh,
work.
yeah.
I would probably create another technician for delivery, maybe something along those lines, or you could use
Yeah.
an extra line for it, or you could use a miscellaneous.
Yeah. Or if you're using a report in Lightspeed, maybe there's a filter that eliminates PDIs or particular sale types, because generally it's an internal type of repair order, so sale type might be internal or something like that. Maybe put those to the side, or if you're looking at technician statistics reports, they're usually broken out in a manner that you can eliminate things that don't qualify.
We
I'm going
did.
to go ahead and launch a poll really quick for those who've joined already. Just a couple of questions in there, and then we might use some of this a little bit later in the webinar today, or just helping us for the future, while we're giving people some time to kind of hop in here.
There's
The
another
other one.
question about the count function. Is that what you're looking at, Mark?
Actually,
Which I believe we're going to be talking about that today. There's an element of count functionality on today's agenda.
yeah, actually, depending, Jennifer, can you give me a just a little bit more detail on what line item you wanted to count?
And this will be recorded for everybody joining, so it will go back out in case you do have to leave early. I don't know if it'll let you upload a report in the chat. I believe it's only text, but it's possible. You can try. Or if you want to email me, Jennifer, then I can look at it.
Yeah, there's kind of a there's a little workaround we use. I wasn't going to get to it today, but we did create a report that allows us to figure out what the fill rate is from parts to service and from parts over the counter and parts to make your units. It's kind of an interesting number to look at.
I think that was a subject
Okay.
you were chatting about on LinkedIn recently, right, Mark?
Yeah, I was actually no, well, no, that was a while back. The one
Okay.
I'll share my screen real quick. This was something. Can you see that spreadsheet?
Yep.
Yep.
So this was something we got working a couple of weeks ago, utilizing 3PA. Now the payroll is available in the poll, but we're actually able to generate a real-time dashboard for service technicians showing efficiency and productivity in real time instead of having to wait to the end of the day or running any reports to get it. So it's updating every 15 minutes. So we're kind of doing daily and then weekly, and then looking at, how much time do we have that the technicians are actually clocked in versus how much time are they punched into the jobs and how much time are we actually billing to the customers. So I think this is going to be pretty good once we get all the bugs worked out of it.
Awesome. There's a question about, can we get parts details on a particular report, parts that are included on a deal? I'm assuming the details would be descriptions, maybe pricing, maybe part numbers.
Yeah, that'd
The
be
answer is yes.
that'd be pretty easy. We could build just a custom report that you just drop a stock number into, say, or you could either do it for a deal number or a stock number, and it would show you all the details. That would be pretty easy. And then Jennifer, the answer to your question is, yeah, we would just create a little rule. You'll kind of see it when we do the if then when analysis. And you could just create a custom field that said, if the F&I retail is more than $1, put a 1 in the box, otherwise a 0. And then when you run the report, you could subtotal those up. So you could easily get your counts on all the F&I products that you're looking for. That's pretty simple. JB asked about the daily doc. Not sure if you've ever used it. There is a doc report that's already available in Lightspeed under General Ledger or System. One of those two places, Brian.
General Ledger.
General Ledger
Yep.
reports and doc, and before you go there, first go to a general ledger lists and departments. In the department, you have to list out what department is kind of the standard, and then the doc report will display the what you need.
And there's some other elements, and I feel like we may have talked about this in our previous session, guys. It seems familiar, but you're on target with that, and also within the departments, you can set up targets that'll also flow into that doc report, which will really give you some great insights into revenue. And for me, it's interesting to look at because it's colorful and it's pretty. So being monkey brain, I like that.
It's also nice that it is available on the mobile app. That is the only financial style type report that is there, and it's nice that it's there. One thing that I always point out, just because it's the accountant, right, is it's not actually net income. It's just your department incomes, and so it's possible you have other accounts that are in your profit and loss statement that don't show up there. So just don't use that when you're reporting to banks or other people. It's not complete. So, well, good. I think we might be at a spot. So, we've got a good number of people on. It's started to slow down with people hopping on. Fernando, don't know if you want to start to kick us off here.
Yeah, let's do it. I'm gonna mute you, Ryan, for a little bit.
I'll mute us.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, welcome everybody to our Lightspeed DMS reporting workshop. We're super happy to have everybody here. If you didn't come to the last one, we did one close to the end of last year. It was more of a workshop for beginners when it came to Lightspeed reporting. We got a huge response from that. That's actually uploaded on our YouTube channel, the Accounting Guys YouTube channel. And you know what? How about I tell you who I am? My name's Fernando. I work for the Accounting Guys. A project manager. I help with the tech team and things like that, and their Empower Reports dashboard. But yes, we're doing another one because of the response we got last year. This one is a little bit more advanced. So, just keep that in mind. If you didn't see the other one, again, go to our YouTube channel. You will see it there. And then this one is being recorded. We will also post it to our YouTube channel. I think Lightspeed will also send it out and post it. But yes, so we've got 3 great people on this call. We've got Bryan Tierney from Lightspeed. Okay, some of you may already know him. You'll see him at expos. He's had like a 30-year journey with Lightspeed. He started at a parts counter, he was telling us earlier. Learned Lightspeed that way, eventually started working for Lightspeed and just became the Lightspeed expert. He's done a lot of blogs, presentations, webinars. He's done tons of product demos. So this is your Lightspeed guy, and we're happy to have him. Joining him will be Brian Lucas, one of my bosses. I got to butter him up a little bit. We're going to have reviews in about 10 months, so I got to butter him up. But no, Brian's great. He's been with the Accounting Guys for 7 years. He's one of the partners, and really he's kind of the main driver who helped take the Accounting Guys to where it is now, which is basically the Lightspeed accounting expert. That's kind of part of our brand here, and that's a lot of that has to do because of Brian. And so when it comes to Lightspeed accounting, it's hard to find somebody else who knows more. So they will both be supporting Mark Sheffield, another name you guys have heard of. He's really a widely respected industry expert, especially when it comes to operations. He's been in this industry for over 30 years. He's held leadership roles in a lot of top power sports organizations. And right now he advises major dealerships, and he's constantly sharing on LinkedIn and blogs and things like that. So yeah, with that, I'm going to hand it over to Mark, and he's going to kind of go over what they're going to cover. So go ahead, Mark.
Yeah, as I like to say, I'm the only person here who's not selling anything. So I would say, if we just based on some of the comments that came up before we got started, if we don't get to all of your questions today, then I'd highly recommend that you come and participate in the Tag Your It Thursdays. So when are you doing those, Brian?
Well, Sorry, you're talking to Lucas. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
sorry.
you're good. Yeah, the Tag It Thursdays. Right now, we're doing those every second and third Thursday, and I just had to come and beat Bryan with hair today. He so.
You're
But
looking
yeah, so
good.
every second and third Thursday, I believe it's 11 o'clock Mountain Time. But we can send a reminder to this. But essentially, it's an open hour of just Q&A for anybody to join in. And Mark often joins us, which we appreciate. We might turn his camera on more often than not in there, maybe going forward. But love to have you join that as well.
Yeah, it's just kind of an open-ended discussion where it's pretty much anything goes, and we talk a lot about Lightspeed and other things like that, so should be good. But anyway, to get going, so know everybody's time is valuable. Just gonna share my screen real quick, and then we'll get rolling. Can you see Lightspeed all right, Tierney and Lucas?
Yeah, we're
Yep.
seeing you.
So just kind of a quick, what did we talk about last time? So we kind of did the basics to Lightspeed reporting last time around, kind of showed everyone all the different features and functionality that exist within the system and how we utilized it. One of the things that I do that maybe is a little bit different than everybody else is that I typically just come under systems and go to all custom reports. It's probably where I'll primarily work out of today. And really the only difference about coming into reports here versus where a lot of people come into reports is that if you come in under custom reports to major unit, then you've just got this little extra box right here that's only going to limit what you see to major unit inventory. So by starting out underneath system and then all custom reports, you just kind of get global access to every report that exists within the system. And so just easier to start out here. I can kind of grab any of the information that I want. I can access any of the tables in the system that I want to work with. But either way, works the same. And so we're going to drop in, and I think I'm going to just grab the parts database. You can see when you come in through all custom reports that you've got access to every table that exists within Lightspeed, and there are a lot of them. But today I'm going to start out, I'll probably grab parts invoice lines. So this would be exactly the same as if we came in under parts and custom reports and then parts invoice. So kind of same thing. And one of the things that really need to get everybody to pay attention to is that every item that we can utilize in the reporting over on the right-hand side has got a data type and how it comes in. And so, some of this, the description is in text. You've got your prices in a money field. You've got other items that come in under a number. And as we start kind of working with some of these fields, it's important that you remember what the data type is. And I'll kind of show you that there are some cases where we can take a number field and maybe turn it into money. We can take a text and turn it into a number. And I'm sure that some of y'all have seen that you build a report over here on the right-hand side, and then you want to go and add up all the totals, and you can't see the subtotal or the grand total field. And that's typically because you have not put a field in there that's formatted as either money or a quantity. And is quantity or numbers that we can add up, Lucas? Sometimes I get that confused.
It's quantity, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
We'll see. So if we, you can see right here that we've got this one that's called number. So if I go ahead and add that over here, you can see that as a number type field, I don't get a grand total. But if I grab one of these that says quantity, now I've actually got that subtotal in that grand total field. And there is a way, and I'll kind of show you how you can take something, if it's under a number and you wanted to add that up, there is a way to convert that number over to a quantity so that then you can add those items up over here on the right-hand side. But really what we're going to be looking at today and where we'll spend most of our time is in the calculated fields. And the calculated fields button is right up here. And if we want to add something new, then we can just add a plus sign. It's going to force me to save my report right here. So I'm just going to go ahead and call this our test report.
And real quick, well, if you don't mind me pausing you for a second, Mark. So there's two ways to interact with asking us questions. There's the chat window at the top, and then you can also do Q&A. Q&A, you're able to submit a question anonymously, and we're going to do our best to be looking at both of those to answer some of those live or near the end. But just want to let you know, it is being recorded. and you have those two different options to interact. Turn that back over to you, Mark.
Thanks. So over here, all I did at this point in time is hit on the plus. That's going to bring up my calculated fields. And now what we're going to do is we're going to look at all the different functionality that we can do with the different fields that exist within Lightspeed. So we'll run through those. There's also the operators that are on here. And these are just kind of the standard things that you can do with numbers and text. If you want to add or subtract, you want to divide, is something greater than or less than something else. And then there's also the if then else and the case when else. And we will go over those at the very end once we've looked at all the different functionality. So first I'm going to drop in here and I'm going to kind of show you, we're just going to create what we call a date field. And if we are working in the system and we want to have today's date on a report that we're utilizing, then we can create date. And if we come down here and we look, we'll see that under functions, there's a couple that are under here. I'm going to look at the one right now, excuse me, that says date. And so all I have to do is double click that. And now that's going to drop the date field into my custom calculated field here. And the system tells me that the result is going to be in date time. And you'll see over here on the right-hand side that, yeah, you've got the date, but you've also got the time that comes along with that. And a lot of times you don't really need to have all of that extraneous data that's over here that's got, you know, whatever the time is it AM or is it PM? And so if we just wanted to get a clean date, there's actually another function that we can look at over here. And the way that this works is if we scroll up and we look at, we're going to find this one that's called as date. And what the system is telling us here is that if we utilize this function and we drop a data field in there that's formatted as date time, that it's just going to give us the date. And so we can see up here that we're working with a date time field. And so we know that if we drop that in here in this as date, that we're just going to get the date back. A couple of ways to do that. I'm going to do it the easy way. I'm going to delete the date that I've got up here. So I'm going to select this as date. And then we've got these parentheses and we're going to want to drop our date field in here. And just to make it a little bit easier to follow, I'm going to add some spaces in here, and the system is not really picky about that. So it's not really concerned if you've got extra spaces in there. Not too worried about carriage returns, but here in this as date, now if I scroll down and I grab my date field, I just double click that in there. Now all of a sudden you can see over here on the right hand side, we've got just our date. We don't have the time that's associated with that anymore. A couple of options at this point in time. We can save this field if we want. And if we just do that right here, then this date field is only going to be available in the report that we're working on today. We can also uncheck this. And if we do that, now this field becomes a global field that's available through most of the other reporting areas within Lightspeed. There's pros and cons to doing that. If you create a custom date field and you say, I want to use this through the entire system, there is the potential that you could be utilizing this field on another report to figure out you need something different with it, and then you change it in another report, and now it's going to adjust what you had in the original report. So I would be kind of careful about that. I think in a lot of cases, you're just kind of better to keep your custom fields as report specific. And if you want to do something else with this specific report, you can always duplicate it, make a clone, and then you can work on it. But in this particular case, I'm going to go ahead and just make this a global field so we can use it in a couple of other spaces. When I'm done with this, you're going to see a couple of things. One, I'm going to have a result over here. And two, I'm not going to have any errors that show up in here. If I had made a mistake, I had put like an extra little comma or something up here, then I'm going to get these, I don't know what color that is. You call it rose maybe. And that is going to indicate that there's a problem with the formula that I've created. And if I try to save it right now, it's not going to let me do it. It's going to tell me that I need to go in there and fix those errors. So if I just go in, I delete that little extra comma that I added. Now I get some valid results back. And so I'm good to save this field. And so now I've got a date field that I can work with, and it's nice and clean. It doesn't have the time associated with it anymore. Now, the next field that we're going to look at, and we are in parts invoice lines. And let's say that we want to create a calculated field that's going to tell us the distance between today and when something else happened. So we can create a new custom field in here. We're going to call it age. And if we scroll down here on our functions and we look, we'll see that there's an age field down here, and it says that I can do a couple of things with this. So I can drop in two fields that have dates in them, and it's going to return an integer, which is just a number, or I can drop in a date time field and a second date time field, and it's going to do the same thing. It's going to give me a result that's in here. So if I look over here on the right, and we're in parts, invoice, and lines, but let's search for some date fields that are in here. Come down to our parts, invoice, lines, and so here we've got a create date, which is going to be the date when the invoice was created, and we can see that that's formatted as a date time over here. So if we wanted to work with this field and we wanted to generate the number of days between today and when that invoice was done, then we want to make sure that we start out with a single date that doesn't have the time associated with it in order to be able to work with this. And so if I just go ahead and double click on this age, it's going to do the same thing like it did before. I'm going to spread out my parentheses just so y'all can see what's going on a little bit. And the first date that we're going to put in here is going to be that custom field that we created as date. And we can see that it's formatted as date only. So if I select that, I'm going to put a comma, and it shows me here in the template that I need to put a comma in there. And then I'm just going to come back over here and I'm going to put in my created date. And so now I get a clean result up here. It's not rows anymore. And it is telling me the result today is 0. But if we come in here and under the create date, let's say that this invoice was created on 12/1/2025. And we know that today's date is 2/12/2026, then now the system is telling us that there's 73 days between today and when the invoice was actually created. And you can utilize this functionality through the entire system. So let's say that we wanted to utilize this in measure unit inventory, and we wanted to look at how old our inventory is. We could add this custom field under measure unit inventory, and we would just say, what's the difference between today and when that unit was invoiced to the dealership? It's going to tell us how old that is. And now we can create a report for our salespeople and our sales manager to utilize that's going to sort the inventory by age. And so we're going to have the oldest inventory is going to be at the top. And now we know that they're going to be, when they go to sell a vehicle to a customer, that they're going to be grabbing the inventory that's oldest first, not potentially. Sometimes if your report isn't sorted correctly, they might be grabbing inventory that, you still got on free flooring when you really want to be selling your older inventory. So being able to calculate how old something is, pretty useful feature within Lightspeed and pretty easy to do. So I'm just going to click on OK. I'm going to save that. And so now we've got that age field that's in here. And however I wanted to build this report over here, if I want to add that date field and I want to add that age, all I got to do is double click those items and it's going to move them over here into my report layout. Next thing we're going to look at is the as quantity function. Call it the same thing that it does. And if we look over here, if we scroll down just a little bit, we can see the as quantity feature. And what it does is it says that if we want to utilize this field and we put a money value in there, it's going to return a quantity. If we put a percent in there, it's going to return a quantity. And so early when we started, I told you that we have the ability to take a field from one type and turn it into something else. And so if I just go ahead and double click on as quantity, I'm going to put that up here. And you can see that we've got this monetary field right here. If I go ahead and drop that in there, now all of a sudden we've taken something that originally was in a monetary field and we've converted it over to a quantity. And we can do that in different ways. So we could take something that's a quantity and we could turn it into a monetary field. We could turn it into a number. And then that gives us the ability to do other things like add totals and grand totals when we're building our reports. So sometimes, again, if you go to create something and you'll see that it doesn't have the ability to subtotal or grand total it up here, we can come in and we can modify the format of that field. And then that's going to give us the ability to create some totals that we didn't originally have. I'm going to save that real quick. Next one we're going to look at is POS, and that's not what you think it means. It's actually position. And you're probably going to think that I'm trying to show off on this one, but this is actually a super useful function that comes into play as we build on the knowledge that we're putting together right here. And what the position does, if we scroll down here just a little bit, is it says that if we put a text value into the system, which is what we're looking for, and then the text substring, which is going to be the field in Lightspeed, it's going to tell us the location of where that is. So if I drop POS up here, I'm going to add my spaces again. And what I'm going to tell the system is that I want to search for a hyphen. And if we are not utilizing numbers in here, we need to put those inside double quotes. So I'm going to put in that I want to look for a hyphen. I'm going to put my comma, and then I'm going to add the description over here. And so right now it's telling me that the result is 0 because there is no hyphen in our sample data. But if I go ahead and I put in here that this is an Indian dash jacket, the system comes back and tells me a number 7. And what that 7 is this dash in our sample data right here is in the 7th spot of that data. So we've got Indian, IND, IN, that's 6 letters. And so our dash is in the 7th spot. Again, not trying to show off with the cool ability to create some custom stuff in here, but this is a pretty useful feature that we'll utilize in just a second. So now we know how to identify where any letter or any custom object is in any of the data we're looking at. You know, if I wanted to just change this real quick and I wanted to say, where is the letter T in this? I can put T in there and it's going to tell me that it's in the 13th spot in the results that I've got over here. So why is this useful? I'm going to save this. And now we're going to go to our copy. I'm going to create a new field in here. I'm going to call it copy real quick. And this is where things get a little bit complex. So here, what the system is telling me is that if I utilize the copy field, then I'm going to have a text value, an integer to start, an integer length, and then it's going to give me the text that I'm actually looking for. And so what it's saying here is that if I come in, I utilize this feature, and I give it a field out of Lightspeed, and I say, where do you want to start? We're going to tell it what character we want to start at in the data that we're looking at, and then how far do I want to go. So if I drop copy text value up here, now if I put, I'm going to grab my description up here, and how in the real world would I actually want to utilize this? So we're going to say Indian dash jacket. And let's say that we've been an India dealer for a couple of years, and at some point in time, when we loaded all of our inventory into the system, we had added the word Indian and then a dash to it before we'd actually entered the description of the item that we were working with. Well, in that case, you know, might have made sense when we were first doing it. Now we got a price tape. We really don't need that anymore. And so let's say we want to get rid of all those Indian words. So what I can do here is if I come in, I'm going to put my description in here, and then I need to tell it a start point. Now I could do this manually, and I could say that we want to start at the 7th letter, and I want to grab the 99 fields that are after that, and it's going to grab that dash jacket. But maybe that dash isn't always in exactly the same spot. It kind of moves around a little bit. And we also know that we don't want to include that dash anymore, so we need to get one letter beyond that. So we actually need to change that 7 to an 8. So now we've just got the jacket, but there is a way to automate that, that function right there. And so what we could do is we can build on the knowledge that we've already got about the POS field, calculation. So if we come down and we grab that, so we're going to put POS in there. I'm going to add those extra spaces like I did before. I'm going to tell it what I'm looking for. So I'm looking for that dash, and then what data set am I utilizing? It's going to be the description again. And so now what's happened here is we've said, okay, look at the description field. I want you to start at where the dash is, and then I want you to grab 99 letters after that. Well, we also know that we need to start at one letter after number 7. And so we can just quickly come in here and we can say, okay, let's add one letter to that. And now we've just got our jacket field. And so we've said, look at description, find where the dash is. We know that 7 letters in, add one character to that. So start at character number 8. And then I want to grab the 99 characters that are after that. So we've taken this data field right here, and now we've just extracted that word jacket out of there. And you can use this in multiple places in the system. You might want to extract the time out of a date field. You may have a lot of major unit inventory that you just want to extract a certain subset of data out of that. You might have customer records that you're looking for a certain piece of data in. And so we can actually modify what content we're looking for. You know, we could look for every part description that we have in the system that has the word bolt in it, and then we could return all those results. So a lot of ways that you can utilize this, but that little POS field is pretty handy and definitely kind of falls into being able to use that in a bunch of the other custom fields that we're going to build. Any questions on that, or am I rambling too much, Tierney and Lucas?
Oh, you're doing great. It's great information.
I think this is a perfect example of why I really like Lightspeed, because you have the ability to, but for those watching this, it does take practice. Like, you just have to get in there and do it and try it. And, you can send us feedback or questions if you're having issues with these things. But the more you do it, the more comfortable you get with it. And a lot of this, you're building it so you get the report to display in front of you just right out of Lightspeed, so you don't have to use Excel or something else to get to there for those options. But just keep in mind that this is advanced. The more basic one was the one we did a little bit earlier, but hopefully that you recognize this will take practice.
And I like to point out, because I'll experiment with these too, and these are advanced. You're right; these are a little complicated at times, and I think Mark pointed out the fact that there's a green results indicator on that calculated field box. So if you're on the right track, if your calculations are actually generating data, you'll know, because that result field turns green. If it's not green, you got some work to do.
And it's easy to drop that sample data up here. So as you're kind of building these things, if you want to see what the results are going to look like, you can put whatever you want up here. It'd be, an extra large. And because we've said that we want to grab 99 characters, it's going to grab all that extra data as well. So I'm going to save that. We're going to move on to the next field that we're going to look at is round. Pretty straightforward. If we look at our functionality down here, we can see that we've got round, and if we put, say, a quantity value in there, it's going to return that quantity. And we can do some basic math up here as well. And so I told you earlier that if you're going to use text fields, you got to put those within quotations. But if we're going to utilize regular math, we can just put that in here and it'll do the math for us. You can see here, though, that if I take 99 and divide it by 11.2, that it's going to give me this log number. And let's say that we want to condense that down a little bit. So I'm just going to grab this calculation, clear it out of there. If I double click on round, I can put my calculation within inside those open parentheses. And now, because I haven't told it how many digits I want it to round down to, it's just going to round it up to a clean 9 places. You also have the ability in there. You can, after that, you can add a comma and put a 2 in there. And probably not going to play along with the data type that I'm using, but with some of the results, you can actually put a comma in there, and then you can enter in the number of places that you want to see in the results, and it'll winnow those down for you. I think if we want to see how that works real quick, I'm going to format this result as money real quick. Get rid of my comma. And so now we've converted our results into a monetary type result. And at this point in time, I believe I can come in here and drop a 2 in there. And now I've got 2 places that show up in my results over here. go ahead and save that. We're also going to look at the trim field real quick. Now, while you can't always see this data in here, if we come in and we add the description field over here, and I'm going to put in 999, well, we know we have three pieces of 3 characters of text in here. While you can't always see it, the computer needs to account for any spaces that exist within results. So if I want to visually show you this, I can add this length feature to this. And so now the length tells me how long this field is. It's 3 characters long. If I come up here after sample data and I start adding spaces to that, then all of a sudden you may not see it on the screen, but there's actually 10 spaces that are being utilized in that field. And so a lot of times we're going to look at the data update tool and the major unit update tool near the end of this. But there may be some times where you've got a lot of data in your system that's got some trailing spaces that are after the end of it. And, you know, in some cases, you might be going and searching for a piece of data. You might be looking for the word name John within your database. But if John is actually entered in there with some spaces after it, you may not actually get the results that you're looking for because you're searching for John. You're not searching for John space. We can utilize this trim field. So if I take the length out of here and I just put the word trim in front of that, what trim does is it actually takes any of those extra spaces that are over here on either the front or the back side of the results, and it's going to go ahead and get rid of them. And now, since we can wrap calculations, if I add length over here and embed what I currently had, you can now see that because we've taken this field that's 10 characters long, we trimmed it, so we extracted the spaces out of there, and now I use this other function to calculate how many spaces are actually in there, or how many characters are in there. It comes back with 3, even though the original description actually has 10 characters that are in there. So trim can be good just for cleaning up data. A lot of places in the system where we kind of see those extra spaces have built up over time, and so it can be just good for getting rid of some of that. You might have, if you are doing a report on your parts inventory and you want to return the results that are in the comments down at the bottom of the parts inventory. A lot of times we get extra spaces that exist within those. You can utilize a trim feature for that. And then if we look over here under the trim as well, we can actually see that there's also a trim left and a trim right. And so if you only want to get rid of the extra spaces that are on the right side, or you only wanted to get rid of the extra leading spaces that exist within some of those fields, then you can limit it down as well. If we just utilize trim, it'll get whatever's in the front and the back. Or we could use trim left or trim right, and it would just count those number of spaces and get rid of what's on the left or what's on the right. While it's a math field, we can, I'm going to call this one combine. And let's find under our customer, we've got our first name and our last name. And let's say that we just want to have the customer's first name and last name as one field, but we just want to make them as condensed as possible. I can just grab the customer's first name, click on it. I can add the plus symbol, and then I can come down and find the customer's last name and add that together. And now if our customer's name is John and Doe, then it's just going to merge those 2 fields together and it's going to give us one result. If we wanted to leave a space between those 2, we could actually come in here and add a few extra spaces just so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to use an open quote or open quotation. I'm going to put a space, another open quote, and then one more plus sign. And not liking that I'm doing that. Let's put a dash in there in the middle. And so now we can see, instead of a space, that we can put some dashes in there between the first and the last name. So you can add different fields together. If you just want to squish them together and have some cleaner results, then you can utilize that with a lot of the text fields that are in there. So if you're used to utilizing Excel, it's concatenate in Excel. Here within Lightspeed, it's just the symbol plus symbol. Tierney and Lucas, anything on that?
Max in the chat was saying a single, like a parenthesis or the, not the double quote, but the single quote might work for your space.
Give it a shot.
No, it looks like it's the same.
Yeah, you still got
it was a good suggestion, Max.
So, yeah, sometimes you never know, Max. You know, some of these things work a little differently. So
a lot of trial and error sometimes in these situations.
Yeah, especially using some of the math fields as well. Sometimes you might have to take your results and multiply times 100. It depends on how those fields are stored within a database. So that's why it's always good to kind of have some test data over here, and then you can just kind of see how that looks and how the results are actually going to look before you just add it into a report and then, run the report and then have to go back and modify it. But pretty quick and simple tip to be able to combine those different fields together. Mm-hmm. Now we're going to get into a little bit of the more complex calculations that are in there. And that's the if then else and the case when else. I really like these and they're very useful. Let's say I'm actually going to give you a good case scenario. We're actually going to go back and we're going to kill this report. We're going to create a new one and we are going to come and find our major unit inventory. So we've got major unit inventory. So I'm going to grab that right there. And so now we've got all our major unit inventory fields to look at. And I know that if you're in a 20 group, a lot of times your 20 group might want you to report your inventory based on buckets, what you've got from 0 to 90 days, what you got from 91 to 180 days. And so we can actually utilize these if-then fields to build that data for us. And if I just come in here and we're going to call this the 0 to 90. And I'm going to come down here and I'm going to select if then else. Then what we need to say is that if our inventory is between 0 and 90 days old, then we want to grab the invoice value, or we want to grab a count of those. Else we're just going to return a 0 for that. And so what the other thing that we need though is that we need the age either by invoice date or by receive date. And just would like to point out to everybody while we're in here is that a lot of times when dealers build reports for their inventory aging, they will actually grab the invoice date field, but the one you really want to use is the receive date. And the reason I say that is because if you grab the invoice date, let's say that a unit came in on December 1st, and then at the end of the year, maybe on 12/31, you took a $500 write down on that machine, or maybe you charged some transportation cost to it. At that point in time, the invoice date is going to update to 12/31. It's not going to be the real date where you got that unit. So make sure when you're looking at the age of your inventory that you always use the age by receive date. And what we want to do here is we're going to say that if the age of this inventory, and we've said that we want to get from 0 to 90 days old, so we want to say is greater than or equal to 0. And then we're gonna put the and in there, and we're gonna add our age by receive date again. And here we're gonna say it's gonna be less than or equal to 90. So what we've done is we said if the age of the receive date is greater than 0 and less than or equal to 90, Then we're going to put our invoice value. So we'll put our invoice amount in here. Else, we just want to have a 0 that shows up in the results. And so I get a green line over here that tells me that my results are actually good. All my Lightspeed fields go blue. That's another reminder that everything's actually good. And what would happen when we take this field and we put it over here into our report is that for any inventory that's between 0 and 90 days old, it's going to print out the invoice amount. But if it's 91 days old, that's not going to show up in this column. Now, a little bit of a pain to build these, but once we've actually got that in there, we can just come in and we can copy all the content that's in here, and then we can recycle that. And so I can just come in here and I can say, okay, I want to add another field. And this time around, I want to go 91 to 180. You'll have to excuse my cat. She's going to participate in the meeting now. And here, I'm just going to modify. So last time around, we said if it's less than or equal to 90, so we need to be more than that. So I'm just going to change this to 91. And then we're going to say less than or equal to 180. And so now we've got our 91 to 180, and I'm going to create one more real quick. And we're going to call it 181 plus. And so if we're going to do that, I'm going to put that same data in here again. Now, I don't need 2 fields in here anymore. So I can just put greater than or equal to 181. And so now we've got those 3 fields for our 20 group report that's going to show the total amount of inventory we've got in all these different buckets. And you can utilize this in inventory. You can utilize this in your parts. So if you want to look at your parts inventory, say that's 12 months or more, no sale, you could utilize essentially the exact same formula. If you wanted to create a service report that showed all of your repair orders that are 0 to 30 days old, 31 to 60, 61 to 90, utilize the exact same setup. Now, a couple of things in here. If we come in and we add, let's put our stock number on this report. I'm just going to put that over here. And I'm going to go ahead and save this report. This is a text database or a test database, so I'm not sure how good the data is in here, but let's just take a look at what the results look like real quick. You can kind of see how you get some data in some of the different fields. Now, we don't want to scroll down and look at all of that. Then I can click on print totals. I'm going to go ahead and select my grand total fields that are over here. I'm going to save that and run this. And now in our test database, we can see that from 0 to 90, we got 461,000 in inventory. From 91 to 180, we got 806. And then from 91, actually, looks like I grabbed the same field twice. So let's grab our 181 plus. And now we've got 7.2 million. So Bryan has not been doing a good job of selling all the excess inventory that he had in his database to Jeff Emick, who I think
we have deposits. We have deposits, Mark.
I think Jeff Emick's got a restraining order out against me right now. So
I think you're right.
So that's how now when we got started, we had a little chatter going on, and I think it was Catherine or Kate that asked a question about, well, how would you count the number of F&I products? Now, sometimes you may not want to report just the dollar amounts of inventory that you've got. You also might want to count, well, how many vehicles actually is that? That would be really easy for us to add here. So all we've got to do, I'm going to cancel this. I'm going to come in. I'm going to grab the content out of this field. And I'm going to create a new field. And I'm going to call it 0 to 90 count. And so instead of putting the invoice amount down here, I'm just going to say that I want a 1. And so every time that we've got a unit that's greater than 0 or less than 90 days old, give me a 1, otherwise a 0. I'm going to save that. I'm going to move that in over here. Now we got our 0 to 90 count. If I run this report, I turn the totals off there real quick. You can see that we've got a bunch of wrong data that's showing up in there. So obviously we've done something incorrectly, but there's another problem that we've got here is that I would really rather have the system count this number up for me. And so if I go in here and look at my 0 to 90 count, I can see that this is coming back as a number. And we said earlier today when we got started, we can't actually add up those numbers. Here's one of those places where I can convert my data into a different format. And so if I come down here and I say, well, I actually want a quantity that I can add up, then all I got to do is utilize as quantity. If I put a number value in there, which this has told me that this is a number, then it's going to give me a quantity. So if I take my as quantity feature, and I'm going to put it for both of the results because they need to be the same. I can put a 1 up here. I could put a 0 down here. This tells me that I've got good results over here. I can go ahead and save that. Now, I still don't have my subtotal, my grand total over here, but if I go ahead, I just need to modify my report a little bit so that I can save it. And now I get my subtotal and my grand total back. I'm going to turn the subtotal off right here. And if I go ahead, actually, I'm going to put on print totals only. And you'll see now I've got that count. So that question that we got asked earlier today, how would I get the total number of F&I products that I've sold? So you would have your extra line would be in the first one where you could have your total for your margin. And then every time the sale amount was more than $1, you could put 1 in there to increment, and then you would add those up for you, and it would tell you exactly how many F&I products that you had sold of each one. The other thing you can do in here as well is that we've got this grouping over here, and right here we've got all of our inventory, but it's everything that we've got. Let's say that we want to look at our inventory by brand. So over here under Make Unit Inventory, I can look under brand, and I think it's called Make in the system. So if I come down, search for that real quick. So we've got our unit make. So I'm going to add that over here in my grouping, and I'm going to say that I want subtotals, which is going to be this button right here. I'm going to go ahead and turn that on up here. I'm going to save this report. And now if I run it, I've got subtotals by all the different brands that I've got in the system. So how many BMWs? I got 18,572, and I've got 48 of those that are 0 to 90 days old. So I know that those two numbers don't match up, but again, this is a test database. So all the data in here is not perfect. So that is how the if then else calculation works. Now, one other thing I'm going to show you real quick before we look at case when then. Let's create a new one in here real quick. So we'll call it if then. If I come back over here and I grab this if then m, there might be that you are looking for a certain piece of data. And so if, and we could do this a couple different ways. We could do it through our filters. But if I come down here and I find my unit make, I'm going to add that into my field. So I've got unit make over here, and I'm going to say that I want this to be equal to Honda. And if that's the case, I want to put in my invoice amount. why my search is not working. So if I come down here, so I'm going to say if the unit make is equal to Honda, then I want the invoice amount. Otherwise, I want to return 0. So everything goes green, that I know that this is good. There may be, when you are searching, this information has to be exact. And so if we said that our unit make is Honda and our invoice amount is 100, then it's going to return that $100 because yes, this this if-then statement is correct. But, let's say that we put that space at the end of Honda. Well, Honda with a space at the end of it is different than Honda without a space at the end of it. Or, we may not know exactly how Honda is spelled within the system. If you're used to working in Excel, then you have ways that allow you to match fields and to see if they're relatively close. Unfortunately, in the report builder here, we don't have any kind of a match field. We don't have anything that is a like field, but we can build on the knowledge that we had earlier. And we are going to utilize that POS field that we started out with, and says if we've got a text value and a substring, we want to return a number. What I can do here is I can say that I'm going to add another parentheses. I'm going to put my POS in here. And I'm going to say that I want to search for the text HON in the unit make field. If I get this right. So add a couple of parentheses. And now I've got that. And so what we want to do is we're going to say is that if we can find the letters HON in the unit make, we want to return a number, and then we're just going to say here that we want that to be greater than or equal to 1. And so now we've made our query correct. And so because we can't search within this if-then, but we can utilize this other feature that says look for HON in here. And if we've actually got the letters HON and HONDA, and it doesn't really matter how we spell it at this point in time, because it's looking for HON and it's finding it, it's going to come back and tell us that, what position is HON in there. It starts out at number 1. So our query is correct. And so at that point in time, it's going to give us the invoice amount in here. Now we can utilize this exact same functionality. I'll show you where this really does come into play. And we can do it in a couple of different spots. We are going to jump over to our customer list real quick. So we've got our customers. Now I get this question a couple of times. Somebody will call up and say, hey, my newsletter company wants me to give them a list of all the customers that I've got who we have an email address for. And when I try to run that report, I get way too much data. So we can accomplish that either with a filter, or we can accomplish that with the if then else. The filter will be a lot easier. So let's go ahead. I'm going to add our customer number up here. We could add the search name. We could add the first and last name, or we could add the company name. But typically when we want to grab a customer's name, we use a search name field because it'll give us the data that we're looking for, either out of the customer name or out of the company name. It'll give us what we're looking for. And I'm going to grab the email address. So right now, if we run this report, going to save it real quick. So if we run this report right now, what it's going to do, because we don't have any filters down here at the bottom, is it's going to give us every customer that's within the system. And so, yes, we've got some who have an email address, but we also have a lot of customers that don't have an email address. And we really don't want those customers that don't have an email address in there. So we can add a quick filter down here at the bottom. That's just going to say in the email field. And we're going to say is like. And we're just going to tell it to look for the @ symbol, which is in their email. Now, if we utilize this right here, and we don't modify this field at all, this search query, I believe that we are not going to get any results back, or maybe just one or two. Yeah, we don't get any results back. And that's because it's looking for exactly the @ symbol in the customer's email address. And we know that the customer's emails are going to have a first name, they're going to have a domain name at the end of them. And so what we need to do is we need to tell the filter that I don't care what comes before the @ symbol, and I don't care what comes after the @ symbol. I just want you to give me the results where there is an @ symbol that exists in the customer's email address. So if I save that, now I can go ahead and run this report. And you'll see that I'm only getting the email addresses that have an @ symbol in the middle of them. And so at this point in time, I could run this report to a CSV, and then I could send that to my newsletter company, my marketing company, and they would just have the customers who actually have valid email addresses in our system. Quick break for Lucas and Tierney to chime in while I drink something here.
Yeah, I'll jump in with two quick things. So first, I want to start off by saying don't have to build everything. Where the purpose of this webinar is to show that we can build anything we want. That age report for units that we kind of built, it's a little different format, but Lightspeed already does have an age grouping field available that will segregate the units by that grouping for the 30, 60, 90, 120 in a certain format, right? And so keep in mind, if you go to any of the modules, part, service, sales, go down to custom reports, there's a lot of available reporting already there. So just want to remind people, likely there's a report in here. So there's that 90, 180, 270, on the 710. And so sometimes when you're getting used to building reports, the encouragement is see if there's something already similar and then build from there. Once you get advanced, often you will do exactly like what Mark does of, I'm just going to start from scratch and build exactly how you want to see it. So just keep that in mind, that it won't, this style doesn't have it in columns versus it has it kind of, it rotates it into rows. And so it does something a little different there. So it might not display as pretty, but there's ways to do that. And so just keep in mind that you don't have to build everything. But the purpose of this is to show you what we're building. The second thing, well, you got just a calculated field that you were editing or in any report. This is, I've gotten stuck myself a few times when I've done this. The fields, sometimes you're trying to build something and maybe there was another calculated field that you're building from. In the top right corner, and Mark might have already said this, but the table that you're drawing it from, down below are different field options. So sometimes you're working on a field and you're like, I know this field is here because I've used it in a different report in the same section, but that drop-down menu allows you to find other field types that are in that bottom section. So sometimes you're using the wrong table search essentially down at the bottom. So just those two things that I was thinking of as you were going through.
So the one thing I would say there, though, just to clarify with Lucas, is that when you're building a report, is that you can look at almost all the other tables that exist within the system. But even though you can select one, you can select the data, the report builder may not like what you've done and may not let you work, if you're working with customers and you were trying to tie invoice totals together, the system may or may not let you tie those two fields together. So, or
it will give you a bunch of duplicate data because it's pulling the query from multiple places and giving you multiple data sets. And so, so keep that in mind as you're in there. Good call out, Mark.
Tierney?
Yeah, the only other thing I would say, and I think Brian, Mr. Lucas was speaking to this as we were describing some of the takeaways we've seen, and maybe even a takeaway from the first session is use those search fields, whether you're in the report menus or if you're looking for a particular reportable field in a report to add to an expression to a calculated field or just to the layout in general. Use those search terms, and it's just going to help you find what you're looking for. And back to Brian's point, there are a number of aging reports, inventory reports, and others inside the program. And sometimes just searching for the report may give you the results you're looking for without having to go and create something. But to the point of this demonstration in this session, it really allows you to build on that data and produce something unique and special for your specific request. Very powerful stuff, but absolutely.
The other thing in here is that if you're OCD like I am, you like your data to look nice and good. You know, if we run this report, we can see that, you know, we've got some of this stuff is in uppercase. We've got some that is in lowercase. We've probably got some that's in proper case. It's in here. And we might say, well, we'd really like all this to be cleaned up, or we've got this search name where all the customer's information is very inconsistent, and we want that to look better. We've got a couple more calculated fields in here. And so we do have one called uppercase. And so this says if we put a text value in there, it's going to return the text. If I grab this uppercase, I'm going to give you some more spaces again in here just so you can see what I'm doing. If we come in here and we're going to go back down and find that search name and put that in there, and we'll just call it uppercase name. Instead of having the search name over here, we're going to put the uppercase name in there, give it a little bit more space. And now when you run this report, you've actually got all the customer's information is in uppercase. So looks nice and clean, looks a lot better than it did prior to. And since Kat asked about it, we will go, let's look at what our extra lines are in here. So which one is our, excuse my cat, so he's getting old and deaf, like persnickety. We've got, which one is our service contract? So that is, if I come in here and add the number, so the service contract is extra line 7.
If you missed what he did right there, he right-clicked on the column header, and that's available throughout Lightspeed of being able to kind of customize your view. That's a user kind of input that you can, it's user by user, so it doesn't change the screen for everybody. But every time you come to the screen, that's the first thing I do is add that extra line on there for that one.
Yeah. Yeah, and that can be really screwball, because if you don't have this enabled, and somebody has come in here and searched that by a different field, then these are no longer in order anymore, and what was first may not be extra line 1 anymore. So you really want to add that and then sort by extra lines, and so get those in the correct order. But I'm looking here, and service contract is number 7. So if I wanted to create that quick report about how many service contracts that I've sold during the month, we could come under sales and custom reports, leads, quotes, and deals. I'm going to create a new one real quick. We've got sales deal unit. If we look over here, we're going to have our extra line 7 is going to be right down here. So we've got our extra line 7 as price. So we can create a quick field in here. Called finance counts. And what we would do is, or we could say service contracts. I'm going to grab that if then else. And we would just come down here and we would look for our extra line 7. And we're going to say if extra line 7 price is greater than or equal to $1, then I want to return a 1. Otherwise, I want to return a 0. button's not working. There we go. But that's going to be a number up here, but we want to be able to add those together. So if I delete those real quick and I come back over here and I find my as quantity field, I can add as quantity there and as quantity there. And then I could put a 1 in this, and I could put a 0 here. And so now I've created a count field for my service contracts. And if I put that over here, and when I run this report, we could add a quick filter for the date.
We may need a broad date range in there, Mark.
Yeah, there wasn't a ton of deal. Let's say finalized date.
Tierney has a pretty poor F&I department.
Man, so we got work to do.
Well, he reckon all he sells is dirt bikes, so.
Hey, that's all that matters.
So let's see.
And Jeff Emick.
Let's see what this looks like real quick. So we've got our deals in the last 12 months. So I forgot to click on grand total, or I did click on grand total. Let's go ahead and print our totals only. I need to save this. And now I've got my total for 7 contracts. So that was a question that was asked up front. And, it's that quick and simple to be able to build a report that would give you all your data. You could, if you really wanted to, there's actually a year and month field that exists over here. Finalized date, month and year. If we add this grouping over here and add a subtotal, and because we've said the last 12 months, I can now run this real quick. And it'll actually, we probably need to do, it gets a little jumbled there. So let's add, well, I was going to show you this on parts inventory, but I'll do it right now. Let's say we're building a parts inventory report and we want to add a field in there where the parts employees can write down the number of items they counted. We could call it a space, we could call it whatever. If we're going to add some non-numeric fields, we need to utilize our quotation marks. I could add that. And so now I've got this count field. I'm going to go ahead, and I'm really just putting this in here because I want to slide these service contract counts over a little bit, but you could also utilize this in your parts inventory. And so now when I run that, because we had this subtotal by month and year over here, we can see that in July 25, we sold 1. In August 25, we sold 1. In October 25, we sold 6, and vice versa. So we can pretty quickly add up all of our counts for all of our F&I products over the course of the year. You can do this a lot of ways to the system. And if I go ahead and turn on, disable my print totals only, you can actually see that that little count field that I built is going to print out on here as well. And so that would be something to your parts employees, or if you wanted to, maybe you wanted to have like a major unit inventory report, and at the end of every month you print it out and your sales manager has got to go out and touch every vehicle and sign off that every vehicle is ready for sale. You could have that space field on there, and that could be where he could put his notes about, is it ready, or is there some service work that needs to be done for it? So just a nice way to add another little field within, so where we can write out some content. So there's one other custom.
Let me give you a little break to grab some water while I add 2 little quick things. I've got about 15 minutes left on time today. We might go a hair over. But then the one thing you might be thinking of getting excited to build reports as you're learning these new things. One thing that we mentioned in our previous webinar was probably don't change the existing one that you're using, right? Make a duplicate and then work in that one until you get it working right, and then have that become the new thing. And if you have turnover, like a lot of us, a lot of the dealers are experiencing, you might have a report in there that somebody has built and they know what it does and you don't know what it does. And so, you're now that you're kind of seeing some of these screens, you could get into that the modify window and see what fields are being brought in and what type of calculations are happening. But it's important to remember, who you're getting access to building these reports, or, do we know what's coming out of them, right? That is just one thing to think about as, as we're dealing with custom reports there.
Yeah, it's pretty easy if you look in here. Some of these reports are the default ones from Lightspeed, and you can't modify those, but you can come in here and duplicate that. And once you make a duplicate of it, that's actually a field that now you can modify. And so you can see it made a quick copy of that. I'm going to create a new one real quick. I'm not going to go into detail on this, but I'm just going to show you that there is one more calculated field function that I like to use. And that is the case when else. Now, if you utilize this if then else, you would think, well, I can take this and I can add multiple sets of questions. That does not work. So if then else is only limited to, if this is true, then here's what I get, or otherwise it's false. You can't continue to ask more questions. If you need to utilize multiple questions, then utilize this case when else. And I typically come in here and I'll just space those out so it's a little bit easier to work with. But you could say when, let's look at unit make, or grab username in here. So say, we could say when username equals John, then our results are going to be team A, or when username equals Judy, then our results are going to be team B. And then we need to give what happens if there are none of the questions that are correct. And we could say house. So maybe it's a house deal. And so if you want to add multiple questions, you can build those and you can continue to add on to these. So case when then, so I could just, I just would grab those when thens, gonna copy that, and I can just continue to add more of those. So I could add a whole series of questions in there and then say for every one of these, if it's true, what results do I want? And then if I get down to the very end and none of my questions are true, then it's just going to give me that default answer to those questions. I'm not going to save that, so we're going to drop into filters at this point in time. So we're running a little bit long here, but that's typically what I do. I'm going to close this, and
we don't got no pod clock though, Mark. So we're fine.
Yeah.
If you guys haven't seen, he's got a podcast, and it's what Unscripted. I'm trying to remember the full name.
Raw and Unscripted. Yeah, actually, just dropped
Unscripted.
an episode this morning, and we just interviewed a couple days ago David Brown from Business Wars, which probably the most exciting podcast I've done. So I've been listening to that guy's podcast for 20 years. He's incredibly smart and a really cool guy to talk to, and we talked to him about the future of Indians. So if you get bored, go out and find my podcast. It was a pretty good interview, and I actually got one coming probably in a couple of weeks with Bryan Tierney, who's here from Lightspeed as well.
Yeah, we revealed some secrets that we probably shouldn't have, right, Mark?
Yeah, a little bit. Nobody got fired yet.
Not yet. Well, it hasn't been posted yet, so.
All right, so we're going to look at some custom filters, and let's grab our parts invoice. Let's say that you, as a dealership, want to create some commission reports for your salespeople. We are going to come in here and we're going to put our salesperson. I'm going to minimize these because all I really want is the parts invoice. So I'm going to grab my salesperson name, and then real quickly, I want to add the parts invoice total. So we've got our parts invoice total, and we've also got our parts invoice margin. So we could add a filter. I'm going to go for a long range one here, just because the data in here is not too current. So I'm going to add cashier date, and we're just going to say that I want to see invoices that were cashiered within the last 12 months. Now, if I ran this, it's going to give me everybody in the parts department. So I'm going to save this. And if you look real quick, you'll also see that I don't have any total fields on here. That's because I haven't saved this report. And just so you know, if you ever come in and modify a report, you physically cannot run a report without saving it. So what Lucas said about making a copy of any report before you modify it, you can't come in and tinker with one and say, well, if I don't like it, then I'm just going to abandon that. You're always best to duplicate that report. But if I come in here and I go ahead and save this report, test report number 9 at this point in time. And for whatever reason, I don't have my grand totals in there. So obviously it's not liking something that we're doing here. So let's look at those invoice totals. And we can see that those fields are formatted as money. I'm going to close this report real quick and then come back in. And I'll be honest, I'm not quite sure why it's not giving us the ability to add those totals. So let's see if we can game the system real quick. And we're going to call it as money. And we'll look for our invoice margin field in there. And so we may see that that's formatted as money. And now we've added that totals field. And so now we have the ability to subtotal and grand total those stuff. Again, you know, the ability to kind of learn, you know, what the limitations in the system are and then figure out how to work around it. If you know the rules of the game, you can always win. So now we've created something that the system didn't want us to do. But I do want to sort this by salesperson. And so over here under my grouping into the right-hand side, I'm going to come in and I'm going to search for salesperson. And I'm going to say that I want to group by them. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to click on report totals only. And so now by my different salesperson, I've got what their totals are. So somebody took a pretty big return here. It looks like they returned a Learjet or something like that over the parts counter. But this would be a pretty quick way to build a commission report. But the only thing here is that we're looking at the total parts invoice lines. And when you think about the types of transactions that you do in the parts department, there's really 3 types. So if we come in here and we search by type, the system will actually tell us what those are. So if we look at parts invoice and invoice type, and we do this drop down, there's parts to customer, there's parts to service, and there's parts to major unit. Well, 2 of these transactions are real, the parts to customer and the parts to the major unit. The parts to service transaction is not actually real until the repair order is cashiered. So if you're building a commission report for your parts people, you would never want to pay on parts to service transactions because what you sell a part to the repair order for may not be where it ends up. And so as we build this commission report, we can actually come in here and we can say is not equal to, and then we would exclude parts to service. And now when we run this report, it's actually only going to grab those other 2 fields. So it would be grabbing parts to customer and parts to major unit. It would be excluding the service ones. We can also, you know, we can add multiple different filters in there. We could exclude if we had 1 employee, say a manager who we didn't want to be included in there. We could come in here and
maybe that Learjet that got returned, we don't want that invoice to show up. We're going to get rid of that one.
Yeah, we could come in here and say exclude invoice number X. You know, if I come in here and I also don't want to include any salesperson. Now, I may not know exactly how their name is spelled, but I can come in here and I know that his name is John, but I don't know exactly how it is in the system. Then I can say salesperson's name is not like an ignore case, and I may not know exactly how that's in the system. but we can use that little wildcard trick that we had earlier. If I drop a % in there and then just put one bracket the words John, then it doesn't matter because we said, I don't care what case it is, and I don't care what's before or after it, but I just know that when I run this report, I don't want any Johns to be in those results. And so at this point in time, you could search through this with a fine-tooth comb and you wouldn't find anybody in here that's got a name John in their salesperson name because we've decided to exclude all of those. The other one, since we're getting pretty close to the end of time, the last one that I'm going to do is we are going to build a repair order aging report real quick. And I think this is really is an important one that every dealer should be looking at. If I come in, so we've got repair order job, and that would be at a granular level. That's not really what I'm concerned about. So I'm gonna get rid of that, and then I'm gonna go back and add. And I just want to look at the total repair orders. And so if I look in here, there's nothing that tells me how old these repair orders are. So what I want to do real quick is I want to create a calculated field that's going to tell me how old my repair orders are. So we're going to call it repair order age. And call this field age. We know that we can utilize this age feature over here. So we need a date time, or we need a date. And so if I look over here on the right-hand side, I can see that there's the date created field for the repair orders is under date time format. And so if I want to figure out how old my repair orders are, I'm going to add date time over here, or my age field. I'm going to add those extra spaces. The first field that we need to put in there is the current date. So I'm going to come down here. Now I've got my date field. I'm going to put a comma, and then I'm going to put my date created field over here. And so that's going to tell me how old these are. Now you'll see that this comes out to 37,481. The reason that happens is because Lightspeed goes back, and I think it chooses January 1st, 1900 as the default date if there isn't any fields that are in there.
Mm-hmm.
But if we just want to see what that would look like, then if this RO was created on 12/31/25, it would be 43 days old. So that looks good the way I want it. And so I'm going to come over here. I'm going to add my repair order number. I'm going to add the search name because I want to see what the name of the customer is. So you got two fields over here. We typically always want to try to grab the one that's in the database that we're working in or the table that we're working in. So I'm going to add the customer search name. I'm going to spread these out just a little bit. I'm going to put the date created. And I'm going to add that age field that I created. So at this point in time, if I ran this report, I would get everything, but we created that age field. And so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to select that. And I just want to see a small subset of repair orders. Now, there's not a ton that's in this database, but I'm going to say is between. And so I want to look at repair orders that are between 30 days and 365 days old. So I'm going to save that real quick, and I'm just going to run it so you can see what the results actually look like. And now you can see that I've got all of those repair orders that are between 30 and 365 days old, but they're not in a very clean order. And if I wanted to utilize this in kind of a management way, I can do a couple of things. I'm going to add some grouping over here. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to find my service writer. So I'm going to select them. So it's going to group, and I'm actually going to click this page break field. And so what's going to happen is every time the service writer changes, it's going to do a clean break, and then it's going to start on a fresh page. And I'm going to come up here and under age, I'm going to click on this and I'm going to click it a couple of times because I want it to sort downwards. And so now what we've said is that we want to group our results by service writer, and then we want from oldest to newest. So I save this. I run this report. And you can see that service writer Alex Clemens, he's only got one repair order that fits into that bracket. It's 174. It's done with him, so it does a page break, and then it's going to go to the next service writer. And so again, this is a test database, but you're going to have some of these in here where the service writers are going to have more than a few. And this is a really good report because if you're a dealership, you got 4 or 5 service writers, you can create this report. You can run it at the beginning of the month, and you could say, I want to have just the repair orders that are 90 days old or older. And at that point in time, you run this report. It's got a page break after every service writer. You hand them their own individual page and say, hey, you've got to the end of the day. Give me a status on what's going on with these. Turn it back into management at the end of the day. Great way to audit whatever you've got going on in the service department. And having been in hundreds of Lightspeed dealers databases, repair order aging is a major problem across the country right now. And so I'd highly recommend you utilize something like this to keep an eye on what's going on in the service department. The other thing that you can do in here as well is that I said is between 30 and 365. Let's say that we just wanted to look at repair orders that are more than 90 days old. So we could say 90. But I can also click on this little prompt button in here. Let me go ahead and save that. And so what this means is that when I go to run this report, it's going to ask me is 90 days what I want to look for. I could say 365, and then I could go ahead and run that. And so now it's only going to give me the repair orders that are 365 days or older.
We had a quick question in the chat about what's the -1. So with the report, we haven't given it any other additional filter, so it's all repair order data right now with that date range. And so -1s are typically the estimates. You could also add another filter in there for, is it a canceled estimate? Is it a voided repair order? Is it cashiered? Is it open? So the status of the repair order into that report to see what's there.
Yeah, I may not quite clear. So if I wanted to actually figure out what field that I needed, I could add status down here. So if I grab this one, it's going to tell me what the options are over here. So that was actually the right field that I needed. And you may not want to have, like you said, some of those might be an estimate. If we run this real quick, I'm going to give me a prompt. And ignore that one. And so that will, let's turn off the page break. So you can see what those different types of repair orders are. Now, we may not want cashiered repair orders there, and we may not want estimates. So what we can actually do is we can create a subgrouping down here. And I'm going to add a couple of these, and I'm actually going to drag this one down in here as well so that I can recycle it. And so if I come and I search for status, and you can't have all of these conditions can't all be true. So I'm going to change this to or. And I'm going to say if the repair order status is equal to cashiered, I don't want those. If the repair order status is equal to canceled, I don't want those. And if the repair order status is equal to estimate, then I don't want those. And so we've created a different filter group here. And so I've said that I want all of my repair orders that are 90 days old or older, and I do not want. Did everybody drop off? Oh, there it goes. I do not want any of the repair orders in the system that are cashiered, canceled, or an estimate. And at this point in time, when I run this now, I'm going to start to clean up my data a little bit. And so I've kind of got rid of some of that extra fluff that's in there. And so now I'm starting to just get a little bit more granular level of detail. I'm going to come in here and look at these on the screen and figure out, okay, there's something in here that I don't want. I can start coming in here and I can say, well, actually, I didn't want those. So I'm going to say is not equal to. And so I can start to clean up my data a little bit. And so now I'm not going to have any of those in here. And you'll see that maybe there's a couple of other types that are in here. And I'm like, well, I don't want those either. So we can start to kind of whittle through what we don't want to see in our results. Last item that I'm going to show y'all today, and this is a super powerful tool, but I would tell you that get comfy with reporting, get really good at learning how to build your custom fields before you start playing with this. But this under tools and data updating on a parts inventory update, this is a feature in Lightspeed to where you can mass update a lot of the fields that exist within your Lightspeed database. Now, a couple of things. There's no undo feature. So if you utilize this and you make a mistake, you're up the creek without a paddle. And the other thing is that you can't utilize this tool while anybody else is in the system. So typically it's something that I would do on the weekend, but I'll show you one way that I utilize this. There's a couple of different ways to do parts inventory. One is that you can just update everything as you count it. A lot of times if a dealer hasn't done an inventory in 2 or 3 years, there's actually an easier way to do your inventory, and that's just to zero out all your on-hand quantity. And so what I could do is I could come in here and I could create a new statement. And what I would do, I'm going to add my my part number. You can kind of see we already got our part number down here. I'm going to add my description. And I'm going to add my on-hand quantity. And so I'm going to set a filter up here, and that filter is going to be that on-hand is not equal to 0. And I'm going to save this. We'll call it update on-hand. And what I would do is, let's say that we're resetting all our inventory to 0, is I would come in here and I would change the on-hand quantity to 0. I'm going to save that. Now, nothing's happened at this point in time. I would have to run this in order for this to happen. When I go to run this, it's going to tell me that I would need to kick everybody else out of the system. You would do that. And then you could do a mass update and you could you could change all of your inventory on-hand quantities to 0. If you want a preview of what you're about to do, then you can come up here and click on print. This may take a little bit of time to generate, but it will give you a preview of the changes that you're about to make in the system. And so again, if you're not super experienced in working with filters and working with all those conditional expressions that you can create, then be very, very careful with this, because if you make a mistake in here, again, there is no undo feature. It's not like Excel. It's not like Google Sheets. You can't just say roll it back. All you can really do at that point in time is call Lightspeed support, shed a few tears, and hopefully get them to do a restore on your database, which may or may not be able to do in kind of the time frame that you've got. As you can see, there's a lot of parts inventory in here, and so it's taken a while for that to build. But it will show you on the screen here that it only does 25 items on the screen. The print that it's going to generate in a second will show every one, but it's going to show you that this part number right here had 21 in stock. If I was to run this part update, that it would take me back down to 0. So with that, my voice is starting to crack at this point in time, but I think I've relatively covered almost everything that I wanted to cover. So,
Mark, that was a great job. Thank you for diving into all those areas and all those examples. I think we did have more than 10 test reports, but there were so many things that you had to whittle through there. So thank you for doing that live. I think that was very helpful for a lot of the Lightspeed users out there, those looking to see what is Lightspeed capable of. Got a little bit more time that I want to just look at the answer to some of the poll that was shared earlier. I'll go ahead and relaunch it in case we want to get a little bit more from people here. So feel free to answer some of these questions for us, but it'll give us an idea of what would you like to see next, in a different webinar. We have planned to do a third version of this where maybe you're not wanting to, you're looking to build big data sets. And so building certain things in Lightspeed is very valuable, and you can get reports to look the way that you want them. And sometimes the answer is you've got to pull it outside of the system in Excel or, using some other tool like what Mark showed earlier with the 3PA program to get the data out of Lightspeed, and then what can you do from there? So we do plan to do a webinar on that. So look for that coming in, in LinkedIn, or we'll send some email marketing around it so we can make sure we get people involved there. But inside that little poll and questionnaire, let us know if there's a webinar you like or you would like to have. From the first one we launched at the beginning, just some of the results here, just kind of interesting. About 30% of people joining us today are owners, and about 40% are controllers, and a little bit in between. 80% of you, or the 29 that initially responded, said that February is going about as expected. About 8% said February is a little bit worse than expected, and 14% a little better than expected. So I guess the next question on that would be, well, what was expected? Do we expect to do bad, good, or whatnot? But about as good as expected there. Roughly a third and a third and a third here in this group, where you've been in Lightspeed for a little bit less than a year, somewhere between 1 and 3 and a little over 3. And most of the group is somewhat comfortable with reporting. So hopefully that was the right target audience for today. Of we're going advanced. Hopefully you're able to, you're able to grab a couple of things that we did there. And we'll continue to kind of monitor those responses. Please, put those in for us so we can know what we want to do next here. But appreciate you, Mark, again, for being willing, especially with going this deep into the conversation and doing things live. Especially, they take some tinkering to deal with. So appreciate your time and in your preparation for this webinar. Tierney, anything you'd like to add at the end?
Yeah, I'd love to just say thank you, Mark. I know that these presentations require a lot of planning and prep and work on your side, and I know you're a busy man already and technically retired, right? But you're probably working more today than you've ever worked in your life, and we certainly appreciate it. We appreciate you being an ally of Lightspeed. Certainly appreciate you, Mr. Lucas, being a part of this and helping to organize these events. We love the accounting guys here at Lightspeed, so it's been a pleasure to be a part of this. I look forward to future events, and thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Bryan. Mark, any last wisdom, thoughts, comments?
No, the only other thing I would say is that I don't, it doesn't always work within my schedule, but I do try to participate in the Tag Your Ed Thursdays. And if you have tried to build a report or having an issue with one, then come and participate in that. And if time permits, which it typically does during that, we might be able to build a report for you during that seminar, or I can have you send me something and I can tinker with it and work on it offline and get it back to you. So there's we had tried at one point in time to build a repository of reports to share with dealers. That didn't work too well, but it is pretty easy within Lightspeed to be able to share reports between dealers, and we've got a bunch that are already built. And I'm actually been asked Lightspeed, I'm not sure if we're going to be able to pull it off or not, but I'm hoping at some point here to create a set of Sheffield management reports that just exist within your Lightspeed system, to where if you're looking for, what are the top 4 or 5 reports to run for your sales manager or finance manager or service manager every month, that those will just be in your system for you already, and kind of the things that I like to look at. So hopefully we'll be able to pull it off at some point down the road. But I appreciate everybody taking the time to participate in this. So I enjoy these. They make it easy. I think there's a lot of stuff that we've done in the past that I kind of forget about. And so going deep like this It just makes me think about some of those things again that maybe we haven't utilized in a bit. So I think it's been good for everybody. Hopefully everyone enjoyed it.
Perfect. Thank you, Mark. And for those of you that are curious about the Tag Your It Thursday webinar, to register for those, if you just go to theaccountingguys.com, in there you can go to basically register for those webinars. I'll also send out an email to everybody who is registered and participated today that they can see that quick and easy link to jump in. But just like this format, well, I guess a little bit different, where this one Mark spent a lot of time getting things prepared, and that one we're just ready for any questions that come your way, and come our way. And whether it's talking about Lightspeed, if you have questions about, we have a reporting dashboard that we've built that presents the data a little differently, or accounting related questions, jumping into Excel, different dealership things that we hear about. It's a good time to be able to just answer some questions and hopefully use each other a little bit as a sounding board. Maybe a little bit of a feel of what happens in a towing group. Definitely not as good as what you could get going to Spader, Garage Composites, Hero Hub, some of these different ones where really build some relationships with people. But it is a lot of fun to get people together and hear how the conversations and what people are dealing with day to day. So again, appreciate everybody for jumping on. I know this was a little bit longer, and for those who stayed as long as they did, I appreciate you making it to the end with us, and look forward to the next one. Thanks, everybody.
Cool. Thanks, Doug. Thanks, Tierney.